Well, hello and welcome to the Alpha Anywhere demo and Q&A webcast. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Products and Services here at Alpha Software, and I'm joined today by Dion McCormick, no relation, who's our lead solutions engineer. Also, we will possibly be joined by Sarah Mitchell later on, who's in charge of our documentation department, and she'll be there to give you links to relevant articles as we go through our demonstration. We're going to start today's demonstration with, I think this is the final installment, at least for now, of the Kanban series. And after that, we're here to take your questions. So you can go ahead and type those questions into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. All right, let's get started. Hello, Dion, are you there?
Yes, I am. How are you doing today, Dave?
I'm doing awesome, man. Thanks. Let me go ahead
Fabulous, fabulous. Well, thank you everybody for taking the time to joining us. We really enjoy having you with us. We enjoy your questions. We always like it when you send them to us ahead of time at guides@alphasoftware.com. And we have so many fun things planned. As I mentioned last week, I was in the fabulous headquarters of Alpha, and there's so many things. The Oompa Loompas are very busy in the back room making all these cool stuff. It's like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory for
really is.
Web and mobile development. Maybe not as vibrant and pretty as, the Tim Burton version, but it's pretty close there. So we had a great time, and it was great hanging out with the team there. So this week, what I want to do is go ahead and wrap up our Kanban series, at least wrap up our demonstration. As you can see, there's an enormous amount built into that technology, and we're merely scratching the surface. And one of the coolest things about this is the fact that I'm going to focus on two things. One is the interactivity element, but also the fact that Kanban is built on top of the list control. So we're going to expand a little bit more about what does that mean to your solutions, and really is a cool design pattern. That said, we also are here to answer your questions. Please take the time to go to the GoToWebinar control panel, go to the questions section and put your question in there. Dave will be keeping a close eye on that. And also, along with that, make sure if you have questions, get them in ahead of time. It really helps guide what we're trying to put together and what we're bringing to you. We have some really cool sessions we're developing in the near future, a little bit more about Alpha Anywhere and Transform and how they work together, and some other new features that we're going to cover that haven't really been covered in depth yet. But we want to hear from you, the most important person out there, the client/developer. So get that into us, and that helps us out with this process. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to jump back in real quick, as we've been talking about in the last couple of weeks, the Kanban control. And real quick, I've already kind of recovered this, but the Kanban control has a really, really powerful sort of use case, meaning it is a very easy and powerful way for you to keep an eye on, or better yet, display process information, where things are in a simple or a complex process. And the neat thing about this is twofold. One is that the human brain can consume it very quickly, so it's a great way for you to present data to your clients. And we kind of went through that last time as we showed how you can color code different items, and they can be in different categories and other pieces like that, which is really nice because then that can value add essentially the data on it, so someone can further consume more information in a shorter period of time. And again, the modern knowledge worker is really focused on the fact that we want to be able to present data so they can quickly assess, consume, and then take action on that data. And the Kanban control is an outstanding control for that. And so I showed last week how you can color code and the other elements there. But what I'm going to focus on now, which is really, really fun, is the fact that because this is an electronic system, there's interactivity built into it. So as we demonstrated before, you have the ability to then move items from column to column or even within the same column. And so the technology is built out of the gate, not only to display information, but to allow users to interact with that data. And when they do, you can then take action on it. And it can either be something simple or it can be something very complex. And what's really nice is that, and I kind of mentioned this a little earlier, the Kanban control is built on top of the list control. And we actually demonstrated that week one is that you can actually connect the Kanban to a detail view, and it's It's just a list control. It basically takes that data and it presents it and allows you to edit it, modify it, synchronize it. All the things that a list control can do are basically built into the Kanban, which is really, really powerful. And so there's actually a video online under the Kanban section where you can actually see how when you drag and drop, you can actually just use the built-in functionality to sort of edit that data, maybe set a category or things along there. But I want to take it to the next level, because you may have the requirement that when someone drags and drops something from one section to another or reprioritizes it, obviously you may want to edit the information this came from, but you may want to take on other actions. You may want to chain other things together, like for instance, sending an email, sending an SMS message, logging something into a different table, or sending an email to a client saying, hey, we've moved your account from this position to this position, or here's your new location, etc. So there is situations where you want to essentially take control and enhance the capabilities or really the reaction to someone manipulating data in the system. And I'm going to dive into that. And the reason I really couldn't show it last week was that I was actually working on developing that, and working with our esteemed development team, came up with some ideas on how to actually make it even simpler to implement. There were a lot of little steps in JavaScript that I had to do. And I said, hey, well, I really just want to do this. And they go, oh, let me do this. And they kind of put hooks into it. So I want to demonstrate that. And very important today is the fact that what I'm going to demonstrate is pre-release. It's in the current pre-release. And so if you want to actually see this same operation or play with it, make sure to use the pre-release from this week, basically, is what we're looking at. Very important, as we always say, pre-releases are pre-releases. They're not meant for production. And so we highly suggest that you don't then deploy that into production unless you're very, very confident, because we are still in the process of working out all the issues and other things that are associated with any pre-release with new releases, and things change on a very quick basis there. And also, I'm going to come back to that whole pre-release concept, because I finally bit the bullet and installed the pre-release on a same virtual machine as a release. So I kind of wanted to show you a little bit of how that looks and how I manage that. I normally put them in different virtual machines, but for this, I decided, well, I had a lot of questions about how to do that. So I want to go ahead and show a little bit behind that. So, but first, let's talk more about the onMove event, which actually drags things from one section to another. So I'm going to pop into my development environment, and I have my Kanban control as we've done before. And I'm going to go ahead and go in there. And again, to make this work, I'm going to, and by the way, I can, if you're interested, I can send out this UX component. It's built on static data, so we don't have to worry about data connections. But you can see we're just using the same static data we've been using before. And you'll see it has a series of fields. I've been using the same list layout, where basically I use the predefined template to allow Alpha to do the list layout for me. And so it took care of all the styling and everything else there, and putting in the drag handle and the things that need to do there. So it works much like we did before. And let's just make sure everything's working before I dive into it. So you'll see, and it's got my color coding that I was showing last week, and I can go in and click and drag and hold. So I'll go in here and do that there, and I'll come back to this in a moment. So I just wanted to make sure everything was working fine and the pieces are there. Now, what's going on is when you click and drag, whether you drag it here or wherever you do, it fires a built-in event. And let me go into that real quick. And so I'll go to my list properties, and the way we get to the Kanban events is we go down to the Kanban layout settings under layout type Kanban. And this only appears when you select Kanban. So I'll go up in there, and we've covered this before, but you have category, horizontal, et cetera, the category fields, et cetera. And we have a very important function in here called onMove function. And this function will fire whenever the user moves something in the list. And therefore, you can capture that activity and take action. Now, very important, this onMove function is a client-side function, meaning that since the person's out on their web browser or on their mobile phone and the person drags and drops it, all that takes place on the local device. And so we have those hooks. And what I'm going to show you today is that you could obviously put in your own JavaScript and do some other things. And I kind of demonstrated that last week, where you can trap essentially an event and trigger onsite. But I'm going to show you today where you can actually send a message back to the server saying, guess what? This changed, take action. And then you can then do things in XBasic on the server down the road with other languages. Really powerful there. So I'm going to focus mainly today on the fact that you can connect this onMove function from a client-side event to a server-side event. So let me go ahead and double click on this and I'll show you. Now, you'll see from last week is that this has now been changed. There's actually some new features, and the features are following, is that before Alpha would give you just kind of like a row number and this and that, which was fine. But the most often thing you want to do is, what is the person doing? i.e., are they dragging it within a column or from column to column? Then what you want to do is, where did they drag it from and to, and what is the data for the item that was moved? So this is significantly different, because before I would give you some row numbers and then you had to kind of infer where that data was and do all this. And I said, that works, but I like things simple, and I know our developers want things simple. So could you do me a favor? And they said, yes, thank you. And they basically exposed this. So now I don't have to go through a whole lot of things. So you'll see that when this occurs, it behind the scenes, it puts into these variables, these JavaScript variables, the from category, the to category, and the data for the row that was moved. And then I'm going to come back and talk about this part in a moment here. So let's go ahead and just do a little sample here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to comment out. And for people who don't do a lot of JavaScript, comments are 2 forward slashes. And you'll notice our built-in capability here color codes it so you know they're comments. So I'm using the standard alert function, and I'm taking that from category and I'm just showing the alert. So I've gone ahead and modified it something very simple. And then I'll go here and here. So I'll do my working preview. And I'll go, I'm going to drag this from here to qualified. And you'll see, the from category is prospect. So it says, yes, you moved that, and that's a prospect. So I didn't have to write any other things. It just gave me that data so I could just have it ready to go. Made life a lot simpler. So I'm going to now go back in there, and I want to actually do something a little bit more realistic. So I'm going to go here to the Kanban, go into the onMove function. Now you'll notice that I'm doing everything right here. Technically, I could create a JavaScript function and take this information and call that function. So it's a little easier to manage, but I want to keep it simple and kind of out of the box here. So now we can go in here and say, you know what? Item is now category plus. So I'm going to give them a little more interesting message, category, and I want to put in here T. And I could expand this to say from and to, but I'm going to put in tcat, which is item is new category, and let me put in a colon and a space. So let's go ahead and give that a try. So maybe I just want to, obviously they're visually seeing it work, but maybe you want to give them another message for some reason, confirming something a little more interesting. So let me go here, and you'll see the item is now category qualified. And let's go ahead and move that from here to here. Item is now proposal. Notice, by the way, when I move this here, the color coding is done for me automatically. That we covered last week, but it's color coding is done there. So as you can see now, it's very easy for you to grab the to and from the information there. So let me go back to my list properties and go in here to there. Now the other thing we can do, and I actually, let's go in here, is the following, is they also give us the data for the row that was moved. So when that row is moved, I now have been given all this data. And it's going to become very important because we want to be able to manipulate things based upon the row. We want to know where it went from, where it went to, and what was actually moved from there. So let's try this. I'm going to go ahead and say var message is equal to there. So I'm going to go right here. And stringify data. And it's called data, yep. And I'll say message. Okay, so what I'm doing here is data is a JavaScript object. So it's a object, it's not text, it's an object. So what I'm using is a built-in, and note the, very important, note the capitalization. the wonders of JavaScript is very sensitive to that. Actually ultra sensitive to that, so you have to do it right. But basically I'm taking that object and turning it into a string, putting it into a variable, and then I'm going to pop there. And I'm going to say data is, if I could spell, my mic covers my hand, so I'm like, okay, there we go. Okay. So what I'm doing is converting it so that when I do the alert, we're going to actually show that message. Okay. And that's going to become very important in a few moments when I show we're going to do server-side stuff, excuse me. So I'm going to take the big cheese and let's move it all the way over there. And you'll notice, aha, notice what I did. Here is the JavaScript object that's basically been turned into JSON. The company name, the amount, the category, the item order, etc. Now you'll notice something. I'm seeing the name, I'm seeing the category, the original category, not the new category. And but the neat thing is, since this is a list control, I can actually have other fields that are associated, and all that data would come here, like a unique ID of the company. Maybe there's some hidden data that you can give it. The idea is that it's a list, so each row, when I move it from here, whatever data is in that row is going to pop up and be done here. So I can go here and grab north, south, move that over there. There's north, south, etc. Now, again, if I'm doing client-side manipulations, I can use that data immediately, meaning, let me go in here, and go to the onMove function. So now that I have that data, I can do a whole bunch of other stuff on the client side. But I want to kind of do something a little different, which is I want to go ahead and call back to the server and give it to a function, give all this information to the function and say, guess what? You handle this for me, okay? And then in there, you can use XBasic scripting to do anything extremely complex, meaning you can call a web service, you can do all this other stuff. The sky's the limit. Really, really fun stuff there. So I'm going to go ahead and de-highlight, or I'm going to highlight this because we're done with that. And I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to show you what's going to go on. And I'm going to explain a little bit, and you'll learn a little JavaScript here. I know you don't want to, but you're going to learn a little bit. And we try to keep it to a minimum. Again, right now, you'll notice that we have 7 lines of code. This used to be like 20 lines of code before the team helped me do these little function updates. And again, this is built in now, so it shows you how to do it. So the way that this works is the following. First thing I want to do is take all of that data that the onMove again event gives me and put it into an object. So you'll notice in this case, I took data, but I also want to get the from and the to category because that information is important for me later on. So what I do is I create what's called a JavaScript object, a new object. I go ahead and add to that, and this is like a pointer variable. If you're familiar with pointer variables in XBasic, same concept. I can take that object and I can say add a from category and put in the fcat data to put in there and data here. So now I have a JavaScript object that has all the information that is provided to me. And as I did before here, I go ahead and turn that into a string. And then this is a neat built-in function that basically, this is called build URL parameter. Basically, it makes your life easier. You don't have to write a lot of JavaScript. Basically, it takes this string and turns it into something that can be attached to a callback. So there's actually, if you go in, you can look up on the documentation for this information, gives you a little more background here. But here is the magic, okay? So I've created a callback function, an XBasic function called onMove callback. And I'll come back and show you how I created that to begin with to make my life easier. So you'll see that I'm running another built-in function. This is a JavaScript function that says run that function and pass it that data. And it looks, I know it looks initially a little bit complex, but this will always be the same structure, meaning you use this function, you give it the name of it on the back end you want to call, and then these are the URL parameters you're passing to it. And in this case, it's a stringified object information. Now, the cool thing about that is that no matter what this is, then it's just going to build this up and send it so it's available to the backend process there. So again, there's ajaxCallback and build URL parameters. It's like These are basically little things, but a lot is going under the covers. When you do this Ajax callback, Alpha on the client, whether it's mobile or on a web browser, is going to compile, do all this stuff, make a call back to the server, hand it some data, and be prepared to get data back. So it's really, really pretty cool in terms of all the things you can do. The reason you need to do this here is because this is all JavaScript, so you have to kind of do it in JavaScript. And I'm going to talk a little bit more of how I created it there. So again, what happens is we grab the data and put it into an object, stringify it, and then basically call our Ajax callback, our function, which in this is called onMove callback, on the server and give it that data. Now, let's go back on the server side here, and you see here is my onMove callback. So this is a standard Ajax callback, and I'll show you how I built this first before I went into it. So what I do is I'm given inside the E variable that JSON data. This is the string data here. So what I want to do is I'm given this basically JSON string, and I want to be able to use it. So what I do is I use a built-in function called JSON_parse, which will take that JSON that's been passed back and turn it into the pointer, and then I can manipulate it from there. So let's go ahead and show you how this works. So you'll notice I have a debug in here. So when I do the move, the client-side stuff, and then when it gets here, it's going to stop. And I can show you what it looks like. And I kind of want you to understand kind of where this stuff is so it's not so confusing if you tried to implement it on your own. So I'm going to take save a lots. I'm going to copy and drag that all the way over to proposal. And you'll see I've got the alert. Oh, did I not? Oh yeah, let me do something here. Did I not do that? Let's go. I thought I commented that out, but maybe I did. Go to my list properties, go here, go to my onMove function. Whoa, okay. I must not have saved it. Bad, Dion. Luckily, I'm smart enough not to have to write it on real. I don't put up a GoFundMe page for like training Dion on how to type, okay? I know you're thinking that.
Native speaking, you got to take that. Yeah.
There you go. Okay. Back into working preview. I believe I saved it this time. So I'll take let's stop and shop, grab it, move it all the way over here, and boom. So what's going on here is this is the xBasic debugger. And for people who are kind of new, I'll make this fairly simple, but what happened was Alpha grabbed that information, kind of munged it, turned it into a string, and then called this function. And in there gave this function a ton of stuff in what's called the E variable. So let me go ahead and show you. The E variable is everything you want to know about your form, but we're afraid to ask. You can see there's tons of stuff. Basically, when the browser or the mobile device sends information, does a callback to the server, it packs all this information so you know exactly what's going on in there. And often Alpha kind of handles all this stuff for you automatically, like updating database, etc. But this gives you all there. Now, the most important thing is that I added that eJSON data here. So let me go ahead and type in here ._JSON. So I added that into it. And you'll see, guess what? Look familiar. From category to category, and then the data about that row that was moved. So basically, I took that JavaScript representation and sent it back so it's available here. Now I'm going to use so this is nice, but this is kind of hard to manipulate. I'd have to do like extreme, if I wanted to get, for instance, the to category, I'd have to do like a string parse and figure out. I don't want to do all that work. Alpha has a cool built-in function that will take a JSON string and turn it into what's called a pointer variable, much like the JSON object. So I'm going to step this and I'm going to go here. And so what I did is I took that JSON data here and turned it into a pointer. And notice now I have a nicely structured item. So I can get the to category, which would just be move pointer.to category or from category, etc. And then we also have the data in there. So if I wanted to get, for instance, the amount, I could just do that. So instead of writing a parser, I can just make it go into a pointer and then I can refer to my data using this kind of nomenclature really good or very easily. And in fact, I'll show you how I use that in a moment. Go ahead and copy that so I have that on there. So now that I have all this information, I can do anything I want to from an XBasic standpoint. I could use the XBasic SQL generator to write an update statement or an insert statement. I could use the built-in email functions. Anything XBasic can do, I basically just said, here's the data. Here's what happened on the user interface out in the field. Go to town, do whatever you want to do there. And so what's nice is Alpha is doing all the calling and everything else and talking back and forth. You're just basically grabbing the data and and basically passing it along. So the only complexity in terms of the setup is you have to kind of just build that object, stringify it, and then add it in. But the sample code's in there. And then on the back end, I use this pointer technology. So I'll go ahead and run, and I'll run this here. And you'll see it said move process. So let's make that a little more interesting. I'm going to go now. Now notice I don't have to do anything on the client side because I'm going to grab all that data and send it. So if I need to make a change, I can just go in here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say, oh, it copied the value. Move pointer. I think it was move pointer dot data dot amount. So I'll go dim amount. Let's see, and I'll go amount is equal to, and then I'm going to go in here. I'm going to say the amount is plus amount plus. So I'm building up the action, and this is basically the JavaScript that's going to be sent back. Okay, great. So as I did before, move pointer, I parsed it. Now I'm grabbing some of the something out of there. And then when I send the message back, I'm going to actually take that data and put it there. So let's see, oh, I know what's going on. Plus. There we go. That should be nice now. Okay, let's save this. I'm going to actually comment out that, and let's go ahead here. And I'll grab the split rail, go there, check it out. The amount is 3454. Cool. Let's grab Leb's Stomp and Shop. 6877 consolidated. We'll put that there. 1100. So now I can take any and all data, send it back to XBasic, and have fun and do that. And then also, more importantly, if something needs to happen, I can send back JavaScript back to the front end to do a refresh or to do something else, to show a message, you name it, you can do it within this capability. So that's the power of the onMove event. And again, the reason this is a little simpler is just the team helped me out in terms of extracting all that information, because before you had to kind of go through and write a bunch of JavaScript to like find out which row changed and where it was from, etc. I said, could you just simplify it? And they did, which is what they want to do more than anything else. So if you have ideas and suggestions on how to even improve this, we want to hear them. Those are very valuable from us here. So a quick recap. The list control is the Kanban control is really just the list control with some more features. Because of that, the list control has all the ability to store lots of data, to be able to use that data, edit that data. Also very important is the list control is an offline component. So you can actually have this Kanban working completely offline. Now note, if you have a action, or if you do an Ajax callback, you're not gonna, if you're offline, that's not gonna work, but you can check to make sure before you call the Ajax callback to do those kind of things there. So you have to kind of decide how your operation needs to work from that standpoint. Built into the Kanban is the onMove function. And now we have the ability to get the, let me go all the way to the top here, fcat to cat, from category to category, and the data. It also has an example to show you how to put together and do a Ajax callback there. And then once you do that Ajax callback, you can have in your XBasic function the ability to grab that data coming back and then manipulate it, change it, etc. Do anything you want from there. Now, one last thing, you'll notice that I have a function here. I didn't hand code this. Basically what I did is I went to the JavaScript actions, I created an action, and I'll say, just delete me, because I'm going to get rid of it in a moment. But I'm going to go in here to add new action, Ajax callback, and I'll call this onMove 2. And at this point, I can come down here and there is my basic structure of my function. So I don't actually have to complete this. I can copy this, put it into the back end, and then start doing the other piece. I just note this, the name of it, and that's what goes in that little JavaScript command that says what callback function am I calling. And you can have many callback functions. You're not limited to one. So again, I use the built-in action JavaScript Ajax function builder to actually get me the function prototype. So I didn't have to like write that from scratch. I copied it to the clipboard. I got back out. I could delete that. I don't need that anymore. And I can go over here to my xbasic functions, just go right in here and do a paste, and it would paste that function in. Then I can start doing my other pieces from there. So I just kind of wanted to show you that you don't have to learn how to write all this code right here. Alpha will actually do that for you if you use the Ajax callback action JavaScript and put that in from there. Super important. Again, this is for if you're connected, and if you make a change, if you do an Ajax callback, it's going to call back to the server. And so if you're depending on that, you got to make sure to do a check for that. And there's some built-in functions to say, is the server available before I do the callback? And that really becomes a decision making of how you want to handle it. That said, one thing that's kind of nice too is the fact that since you can do other things with JavaScript on the front end, you could actually store that into another list and use the list function, because you have all these offline functional capabilities built into Alpha. So really depends on your requirement, what you're doing, and whether or not you're going to be offline or online, how you're going to implement these kind of features here. Most often a Kanban tends to be more of like a web dashboard function. So I think what you'll anticipate seeing is that it will be A-OK for most of what you want to do. And you can use this technique to implement more advanced sort of user behaviors or interaction behaviors on the Kanban control. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and open it up for questions.
We have a few questions. So let's start with a Kanban question. Well, hang on a second. Let me shut this off so there's no weird buzzing in the background. All right, here we go. The first Kanban question is, does the onMove event fire when you're moving, when you're just repositioning it in the same category as opposed to moving an item from one category to another category?
Excellent question. And the answer is yes.
Okay.
And you can detect what's going on there. So let's see, 222. So the answer is yes. And what you can do is you can look at that and you can say, oh, is the from category and to category the same? Boom. And then in that case, actually, let me go ahead and demonstrate that. I'll just look at it real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and do a working preview. So I'll go ahead and drag this down. So you're just saying, I want to reposition these, which is really handy. Oops, let's go ahead and go back into the functions here and open up that debug so we can look at the data. Okay, so you'll notice that my it says prospect from categories prospect to category is prospect. So now I know which and to. And so that allows us, interesting, I'll have to talk to him about that, because how would you detect the previous position, the other? So I'll have to look into that. Great question. I'll do a follow-up on this. Nonetheless,
like previous item order or something like that is kind of what you're looking for.
Yeah,
but
I wonder.
Here's just item order. Yeah.
Let's look at that. It says item order and key. So let's go ahead and halt that. Oops. And we'll go ahead and get out of the debugger. And let's go ahead and do this up here. There it is. Item order is number 1. And let's go ahead and drag this all the way down to the bottom. So that'd be 1, 2, I think, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
It went from
no, it says 9. Okay, so that's a really good point, actually, because a common use case is reordering rows. Like, I just want to make this now my 3rd priority here. And I'm not seeing what would be an easy way to figure out. See, notice the item order is 7, but it's not really the 7th item in there. So I'll have to go, yep, that's why it's called a pre-release. But great question, because you want to be able to make it very easy for you to understand its position in that row. Like, you know, I would think it would be within this group, you know, what is my position there? Interesting question. How would you do that? Well, we'll take that under advisement. But as you can see, it's going to, whenever you move it, whether it's within a row or to another one, you will be able to do that. By the way, there is a alpha already, and this kind of relies on it. Some time ago, the list control, let me go ahead and go into the list control, enabled the ability to, where is this? Has row drag reorder behavior. And we're kind of using the same underlying code. You'll notice it's not enabled here. And in fact, let me do this. I just want to show you. That's kind of cool because Kanban might be overkill for what you want to do. So let's go ahead and explore that real quick. It's a really nice feature. So I'm going to go ahead and add a list control. The list is a drag, man. And then I'll go ahead and do a panel card around there. And we'll make this. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and add some static data in here, and I'm going to click a very simple set of static data. Then I'm going to go here to fields. I'll go to my list layout, put them in there. I'll go to my list properties. I will go down here and say I have a drag reorder ability, and here are the settings. And so it's down hold. These are different ways to handle it. Let's do a handle. That's kind of cool. Let's try the handle one. And then notice it has the same thing, onMove in JavaScript. We'll have to check that too. Maybe there's a way to handle that. Okay, so let's go to list layout and let's give that a try. And so now I'm going to do a working preview. And where's my little, I think I have to, let's go back to my, let's see, mode handle. I haven't used this in a while, so bear with me. Okay, so you can see right here, there's a little H for in the list layout template. You know what? We should come back and do a session just on this. So let me just go ahead and do this. And I just want to show that. So I think it's control. Huh. You know what? I am rusty. I am not doing justice to this. So let me come back and do that because I think this is a really handy capability here. The neat thing about it is that it works very similar to the other, meaning that when you drag and hold something, it will fire the onMove JavaScript. And then this you can see is you get a pointer to the list object, much like you do. And most importantly, and this is really why I wanted to show you, you get the from and to zero-based row number of the user is moving. So for instance, if I'm using here, and if this was working, and I apologize it's not, if I click John and move it to like down here, well, John is at the 0. So it would give you a 0 from the from location. And then if I move it down here, it would be like 0, 1, 2, like it's where it's gone is the 2. So very similar. It gives you that object with all the data in it, much like the data object we saw earlier, and it gives you the from and to. So if you're just doing a reordering of like items in a table, this is a really nice way to feature it. And I apologize, I did have it on there. Did I miss a setting? And maybe, let's see. Did I miss something out? Drag, reorder, mode, down, hold. The nice one is the handle because it gives you a little handle like we had before. And you have to, there's a few other steps that have to go through that. So I'll come back and let's do a dedicated session on that because I think it would be really good. Because if anything, this will probably be even a more applicable for more people because a lot of people have the ability to reorder or want to reorder things. Like, here's my priority of items I want in this menu. And you just do them manually kind of scenario. So you have to do a little more setup here, whereas the Kanban's got a lot of the pieces already taken care of it for you, just because it's a bit more complex, but we'll come back there. But that said, the answer is, and what we'll do is I will follow up in terms of, for the Kanban, how would you determine in the onMove event, you're getting a from and to category. If you are moving it within a single category, how would you get that nice zero-based kind of item?
From and to row, kind of. Almost
Yeah, and it's kind of layers on layers. They're using some of that drag behavior below, and they've just kind of made it a little fancier to be able to handle there. There actually used to be a way to actually see the mode. So, this is a simplistic for maybe from and to. Maybe they can expose some of that stuff that helps it. But I'll take both of these use cases, run them back by, do a demo on the single list drag behavior, and also update you on this. Great question. I love that. That's why we want to show you some pre-release stuff so that we can get, well, the drag isn't pre-release, but so we can get that input, because then down the road, other people are going to have those same kind of questions. And if they're already answered, boom, we're good to go.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan.
If I may
interject.
More.
Oh, yes,
please.
Yeah, so there's actually 2 more properties available called from and to. They're not gone, they're still there. And if you're moving within the category, they will contain the zero-based row number from the previous and next.
Let's do that. Let's go in here.
And I pasted that link to the documentation where that is detailed in the chat window for everyone.
Oh, great.
So I'm just going to adjust this real quick. Oh, by the way, shortcut, highlight the rows you want to do it and use that. So this works both in XBasic. So you'll notice that I highlight in items and I can remove comments or I can add comments. So instead of sitting there watching me for too long. Okay, so we'll go ahead and hide this. So it went from 0 to 1. Let me go ahead and drag this up here. That should be something to 0. Yep, 3. And remember, it's 0-based, JavaScript 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3. And you can do the same thing in terms of the standalone list, the drag behavior, and we'll do a demo on that. Thank you very much. That's great. I'll probably have the development team put that back into the comments because that, that way, if you open up, it's just right there in front of you. You can get that information. Very handy.
That's awesome. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Dion.
Thank you, Sarah.
Do
the rescue.
Couple more Kanban questions and then just a general list question. For the Kanban question, it looked like there were a couple different ways you could style the Kanban, and one of them had like a color coding on the left side. Is that something that could be modified by the user, by the developer? Could they, for example, make the color coding at the bottom or to the right or some other place?
Yes, absolutely. And the reason why, again, and I keep coming back to this is a list, and a list layout has this functionality. So you'll see that, and I'll drag this over here. Okay, so this is the standard. When I say predefined template, I insert this and it sticks this in here. So you'll notice there's a couple things.
Yep.
There's the div, which is the drag handle. There's where I put my information in right here. And then up here, you'll notice that it's got this Kanban color in a background. So the div style. So this is basically, again, this is where you have to be a little bit more CSS sort of savvy, but you could just change this information here. And we're passing in this value here. And that's what that background, this basically will be replaced with a color code of, a hex color code of green or blue or whatever happens to be. And then this is just plain old CSS. So you would have to manipulate the CSS here to make it look differently. So I can, so a little bit more, but the answer is absolutely yes. And it's up to you. You can style it any way you want. And you'll notice that we're basically giving you this little piece of code right here that will give you, if you put that, that will just render to the color code. So you can put it anywhere you would need color. So maybe we're going to highlight, I could put in like a span here, and I'll go background. Or is that, you have to do style? I don't know.
But you could
style
put in, equals, yeah.
Equals, and then background, and then I put this right here, right? And I'm going to grab this. This is going to explode, just to let everybody know. Just to let everybody know ahead, this thing is not going to end well.
There are
But
two
hey, let's have
semicolons
fun.
at the there are two semicolons at the end, which I don't think you want.
Yeah, I don't know what that. Maybe that's from the other.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of copying it from there.
Right.
Well, I think part of the. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll leave it.
Position names. Yeah. Okay. Let's try it with one, and we'll come back. Ah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Check it out, everybody. Ugly, and that's why
it is. But,
obviously nobody pays me for my styling capabilities. But you can see, all I did was kind of like, oh, it just gave me, I get a good CSS person or.
The gist is you can edit the HTML and the list layout, and if you want those colors to be some other place, you can use that placeholder for the hex value of the color. So if you want to change that color, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, I'm going to get rid of that because that, for now it's just.
Okay, hang on.
Oh, I'll leave it in there because someone may want to grab that and play with it.
Oh, here's a good question. Okay.
I like good questions. Bad questions are not appreciated.
No, they've all been good questions. I'm sorry, I shouldn't.
No, I know.
I'm not judging.
But it's a good question.
This is a great question. Back at your Kanban view, you were putting things into different categories. You had like closed deals and prospects and so on. Would it be possible to have subtotals for each one or totals for each one of those columns? And if so, how would you go about doing that?
That's a good question. I might have to do some research on that.
Okay. Yeah. So the idea, so if you want to maybe show us that next week or something. That would be really
so the thing I'm looking at, the two things, just make sure I don't. I'm going to overpromise and underdeliver. That's my goal here. That's our credo.
It's not.
We live by that.
Quit it.
Okay, so first is list drag, because I showed my incompetence and I will recover from that. And then secondly is totals in
for the Kanban columns. Yeah.
Columns.
Yep.
Yeah, because you have the issue, if I drag and drop, then that column has more stuff in that column. Well, you'll want to update the total for that column. So there's some interesting things that could go along with that. So great question. Actually, a very good one.
Also, it looks like Sarah has posted a video or posted a link to a video. It says in this, there's the link right there to Vidler. And it's adding color coding and summary values to a Kanban layout. So that.
Ooh, so you don't have to wait for me. I will still cover
for you. Yeah, you still cover because that would be super useful.
Well, what's going to be great is I'm going to go watch that video. I'm going to then record my own demonstration listening. Then I'm going to edit this video, insert it in there.
Just dump it over with your own voice and you're all set.
Well, Dave, that's a great question. Let me go ahead and show you. I would like to show this. Everything changes in terms of screen size and voice and stuff, and then it pops back. Like Wonderful. The magic of movie magic.
Movie magic, exactly. The other Kanban question. Oh, that was the other Kanban question. So I've got a list layout question. And one of the options when you were in the properties and I think where you even telling it that it was Kanban versus some other thing, was the ability to do checkboxes to select individual rows on a list. This is not Kanban, this is a regular list. Checkboxes to select the rows. So their question was, how do I know programmatically which rows have been selected? Where does that data live if I wanted to, for example, send emails to the 3 people that I selected on the list or something like that?
Let's see. Okay, so gotcha. And the answer is it's built in. Let me go back to sharing. And we did that a couple weeks ago on one of our webinars. So we'll have to dig that out, but we definitely covered that. But let me go ahead and show you where to find that. Cool. So I'll go back into my non-functioning list here, and I'll go back into the list properties here, and I'm going to go down to the, where is it? Right here. Okay. So you'll see, I'm going to turn off this and I'm going to turn on has checkbox select control. And I'm going to click that there. And then as we've seen before, you go in here and this is where you update those items here. And again, if you go back in one of our weekly webinars, we do cover that. Really handy stuff there. And then you can also put in an unchecked check all up top.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and do that. You know what? I think I know what's causing the problem here. I cannot use GR Blue. I have to use one of our newer styles. That's probably what's going on because it doesn't have the CSS to render this stuff. Dope. Okay. Oh, sorry, missed a step. First thing you need to do, step one, is go to your list properties. Maybe I need to go back and watch my webinar to get back up to is click on has checkbox select control, and then you can customize that with colors and the SVG showing there. You have to go to list layout.
You have to add it to the layout. Oh, I see. Yep.
There you go. And then you can position that in here. So now that that's in there, and by the way, the default one just looks gorgeous. I love this default one. You'll see, have these beautiful checkboxes right here. Voila. Nice. And then you check all. And then there's a series of JavaScript functions, et cetera, that's built in to manage and to get that information to find out what's checked and what's not been checked. Now that I've got that working, let's go back into here, and I'm going to go to my list properties, and I'm going to turn off that. I'm going to turn on the row behavior as drag row, and we'll leave this, and I'll say, yeah, we'll just leave it drag there. Go list layout, we'll get rid of that since it's no longer applicable. And now, and I'll come back and do justice to this. Let's see, it's control. Oh, no, I've got to do something else. So I think I have to add some extra little HTML or JavaScript and HTML, so I'll come back and do that. But you'll notice very important is that the default style in this project was GR Blue, the classic GR Blue. And which is gradient blue. I don't know, that's a little trivia. GR means gradient blue. If you do use these more modern techniques, you really need to make sure that the UX control is using one of our modern styles here, not the legacy styles down here, the old CSS fill. That's why that wasn't showing up for the checkbox control. So we'll come back and do a drag and go through that. Pretty good.
Very cool. Now, to figure out which ones you have checked, it looks like there's a method called getCheckedValues. It's part of the list object. And Sarah has just posted a link, actually, in the chat window for the documentation on that.
Dynamite. Yes,
so
all that's built in. So
the full question was, okay, I know how to turn on that effect, but how do I know which ones were selected? And the answer looks like is you're going to use this JavaScript method to do so.
So Sarah, I saw your comment, your chat. Are you calling GR Blue archaic or me archaic? I'm a little confused. If we could clarify this messaging
archaic.
thing. I don't see a winky thing after it to say, ha ha, I'm laughing at you. Oh, yes. Thanks for clarifying that. Yes. She put yes in the chat window. Very handy.
Great. So do we have time to cover the whole topic of pre-release, where to find them, and you mentioned about running them both on the same
this will only take a few moments here, and I'll show you there. So first and foremost, actually, if you go to the Alpha Anywhere release notes, and there we go, paste them right here. So you'll see this is our release notes. This is the official release notes, and it actually tells you the build number, the date and time, and this one's August 2nd. And there's a couple hot fixes, things like that here. But if you go here, you'll see the pre-release build, and you can click this little link right here that takes you to the pre-release. Now you can bookmark this and have that available at any time. So it shows you when it is. So we had a release on the 30th. It has updates down here of what's been going on, changes, this and that, from that standpoint here. But you'll notice there's a series of links here for this release build. And you'll notice it's, so I can sit there and pull down that release. Now, this is going to patch. You can pull down the full release if you want. So again, these bring down either a patch, which is just going to apply a secondary, or there. Now, the most important thing you need to do and I'm not going to go through that here, is that when you start this, it will do a standard Windows install. And one of the steps it will say is, where am I installing this to? And that's where you have to be careful. So the standard location that Alpha puts their installs is in program files x86, because this is a 32-bit application. And the standard install location is A5V12. Okay, so if I go in here, this is all of my current, I call it production release. But you'll notice I created another folder. So when I did my pre-release install, during the installation process, it said, where do you want to put this? And it was defaulted to this folder. And I said, no, 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 I want you to put it in this folder. And so the real key thing is that when you run your install, instead of just clicking next, 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 you have to take the time to say, when you get to that point, look for where it asks you to do. And then when it does that, it basically puts the whole thing in here. And so for me, I now have two icons. This is my production one, and these are two shortcuts. When I click here and open up here, you'll see in a moment it's opening up Alpha Anywhere. And this is, again, discipline. You got to be careful about this stuff. So I'll go to About, and you'll see here is the production one, 6012. So this was that last August one here. Now, when I click this other one here, it is a shortcut into the executable inside of that second folder. And you'll notice in this case, I'm using 6135. Now, here is the thing that's going to throw you off. And that's why I do like to put things on different virtual machines. Let's say I say open workspace. Well, this will go ahead and, oops, actually, let me go back. Let me go back here. I'm going to go ahead and not going to save that one. I will save that one. So I'm going to go ahead and launch my pre-release. And again, you'll notice it doesn't have, I can't really see here. I have to kind of be in to really see it. And it looks exactly the same. But notice it's showing me all of my files here that I opened, whether I'm on my regular release or this. So if I click on one of these, I could actually start editing my production code or whatever it happens to be there. So you just got to be careful and really manage it tightly, because you don't want to do something where you accidentally start the pre-release and you're working on a production system, edit UX, and then post that and send it to the server that's running the production versus the pre-release, because then bad things happen because certain code's not in there and things like that. So again, that's why I tend to move things to different virtual machines, because then I know I'm not going to accidentally do something. I won't, it's the classic, remember in the Ghostbusters, it's like, don't cross the streams. It's like, and crossing the streams is using like a pre-release with a production build and this and that. And the funny part in that movie is he goes, bad things will happen,
Bad things will happen. Yeah.
Bad things will happen. So anyway, bottom line is you can go to the pre-release, you can download it. When you go through the installation, make sure you be very careful to tell it which, go to this PC, go into C, and go to program 86, pick the directory you want to go into to make sure it installs in the right location. And then the discipline, when you run it, just be careful when you open up projects that you're making sure you're already in the production release, not the pre-release or something along those lines there.
Excellent. Thanks very much.
And Sarah sat and gave us how to install multiple versions, a link to this with further documentation.
There you go.
It's do a much better job than I did.
And there's a different one for IIS. Interesting. Cool. Okay, so just one quick thing also from Sarah. She wanted to point out that if you are using Kanban against a database, you do in fact need to have a couple columns in your database that keep track of the order and that keep track of the column that it's in. I think they have to be
if you want the list control to automatically update that database.
Exactly, right. So it knows where it is next time, right? Yep.
Yeah.
Cool beans. And I think that's about it. Wow,
awesome.
we did very well. We have 30 seconds to spare. If you have further questions, go ahead and send them to guides, GUIDES @alphasoftware.com, and we'll be happy to get back to them. Also, I'd like to make a quick note. I've been way behind in posting videos. Apologies, but I've done a good thing. I've actually put someone else in charge of this. So starting this week or next week, Videos should be posted within 24 to 48 hours is what we're shooting for. So you won't have this weeks-long delay. I apologize for those who have been who have to stay up late to watch it because you're maybe in the Middle East or Australia or something. They'll be available to you. Dion, thanks very much for presenting. Sarah, thanks very much for all of your help in posting the documentation. We hope to see all of you next week at the next Alpha Anywhere demo and Q&A webcast. Take care and goodbye.